Why? Because when we wear the crown, when we protect it, it draws people. As a matter of fact, the Lord said it like this. He said, when you do good works, I'm paraphrasing, He said, others will see that and glorify your Father, which is in heaven. Notice it bypasses us. And it'll glorify your Father, which is in heaven. In other words, it will direct the attention. There's going to be people who will say, if Carla can do it, if Jamie can do it, if Gary can do it, if Wayne can do it, by God's grace, I can do it. I can do this. We've got to protect it. We cannot be careless. Let me, before, and I'm nearly out of time, but let me read to you what happens when the crown falls. Brother Zach, let's go back to Lamentations chapter 5, and let's start at verse number 1, if you would. Jeremiah summarized with this, talking about the sin. I want you to listen very carefully what's happening. Listen very carefully. Remember, O Lord, what has come upon us. Consider and behold our reproach. Next verse. Our inheritance is turned, or in other words, given to strangers. Our houses, our own houses, are given to aliens. That means, of course, those of another country. We are, listen to this. Here's the children speaking. We are orphans and fatherless. Our mothers are as widows. Next verse. We have drunken our water for money. Listen to that. They're having now, because they're slaves, they pay for what belonged to them. Our wood, our own wood, is sold unto us. Next verse. Our necks are under persecution. We labor and have no rest. Next verse. We have given the hand to the Egyptians and to the Assyrians to be satisfied with bread. In other words, we worked for the benefit of other people, not for ourselves. Next verse. Our fathers have sinned and are not, which means they're not even here anymore. And we have borne their iniquities. When the crown falls and we fall into sin, just like I was using an illustration with Alexa, it will carry on. Our children, the people around us, will suffer. Next verse. Servants have ruled over us. There is none that delivers us out of their hand. Next verse. We got our bread with the peril of our lives because of the sword of the wilderness. In other words, just to feed ourselves and survive, it nearly cost us our lives. Next verse. Our skin was black like an oven because of the terrible famine. They've been deprived and they suffered physically. Next verse. They ravished the women in Zion and the maids in the cities of Judah. They didn't stop at taking their houses, didn't stop at taking their money, but they have now ravaged and ruined the women and the handmaidens. Next verse. Princes are hanged up by their hand. The faces of elders were not honored. Next verse. They took the young men to grind, and the children fell under the wood. So both young and old have been afflicted. Next verse. The elders have ceased from the gate, the young men from their music. This means they have ceased from commerce. To be in the gate mean these were businessmen. This was economy of the city. And the young men from their music, even their worship, has ceased. Next verse. The joy of our heart is ceased. Our dance is turned into mourning. Next verse. Here's what we read. Why has all this happened? The crown is fallen from our head. Woe unto us that we have sinned. Church, if we don't protect the crown, there's affliction. There's desperation. There's discouragement. There's defeat. John the Revelator, again, I'll remind you, in Revelation, he said, hold fast to what you have. Let no man take your crown. Don't do it. Don't give it up. Don't be careless. Don't be inconsiderate of it. Don't think that you're inferior. It's time that we live up to what God has asked of us. That we protect with all that we have what is true and righteous and what are the mandates of heaven. Forgive us, God, when we sin. Forgive us when we're cold and calloused and act like we don't care. Forgive us. Sister Carolyn, if you'd come. Can we bow our heads all over this sanctuary?